Hi guys, how's it going? So John Blanche's passing did really take me by surprise. I knew he was older. I knew his health wasn't fantastic, um, but it really has come out of the blue for me. It's given me a similar feeling to when Bowie died. Someone I've never met, but when they go, a huge chasm or void is left. Yeah, I don't want to make it too much about me, so I'm just going to have a sip of tea and then read you something. So you all know who John Blanche is, probably that's why you're watching this video. There's his Knights Panther from the Empire in Flames fantasy roleplay supplement, the original Enemy Within campaign. And here's the cover of the Shamutantai Hills. That's from the Sorcery series, featuring this in this You Are the Hero compendium, History of Fighting Fantasy, and the other novels there. Care City Port of Traps, Seven Serpents, and the Crown of Kings. I don't think I've ever actually finished the Sorcery adventure game books. They're all in storage at the moment. I like to rotate the books a bit on the shelves so they don't get too dusty. And if you went through this, the Dice Men History of Games Workshop, I imagine you'd find lots of John Blanche pieces of artwork. At least I hope you would, because he was very involved with White Dwarf in the early days. And my very first White Dwarf featured John Blanche heavily. It had a space orc on the front, and I think it was around the time of the Space Crusade release. And he was always part of the heavy metal team, so there would be a John Blanche painting guide. I remember as a youngster thinking the John Blanche stuff really stood out compared to the other artists. It wasn't essentially your typical fantasy art that you were used to. It was a little bit, there I used the word avant-garde, or a little bit out there. And as a youngster, it was kind of like, wow, what's that all about? But as the years went by, it was his work that stayed in the consciousness, the grim dark. So much so that in recent months I bought a Masterclass John Blanche set Volume 4. And I was really inspired by the bit of writing that comes with the set. And I read a little bit, but I'm going to read the whole thing today as a tribute. Beautiful painting palette there, look. It's improved my painting since I've started using it. Recently did some Napoleonics. I'll just show you quickly. Did these all in the John Blanche style. That kind of not an overuse of colour, but kind of like a grim dark approach to Napoleonics there. Those are Prussian hussars. So yeah, quite pleased with those. 1/72 scale. But here's what he has to say about the early days of Warhammer. He says, "There was no such thing as Warhammer. When I started, it didn't exist. But I have a deep fascination in real history. That's where it all starts. Reading book after book about history, going to museums to look at real armour, I really wanted the Empire to mimic the Holy Roman Empire, the late 1400s. So colourful, full of mercenaries, medieval-esque cavalry, pistols and plate mail. Mercenaries are great, all mixed up. Always the fringes of armies. It really excited me. A Rick Priestley explained to me one day that the Space Marines were medieval monks, and that just clicked with me, so I started drawing a Gothic style, making all the buildings Gothic, spires, war-torn and in ruins. In your imagination, you can have such good fun. What I had in my head all the time was all the people behind the armies. What were they like? What did they do? What are those grim worlds? I wanted to do a cleric's rebellion, these vast halls with thousands chained to medieval lecterns, dipping quills, scribbling away every day. Imagine all of them rebelling. I was never very good at drawing orcs or dwarves, so I tended to err on the side of humans. I liked warped humans, servitors and priests. Taking the basic human figure and making it weird, but reality is even more weird. Painting miniatures has grown out of my process of painting pictures. You want to do the practice and paint. It's a very satisfying hobby. If you've got an enthusiasm for the miniatures to start with, just get stuck in. Look at other miniatures. Settle on what you want to achieve and try to do it. It won't look like what you thought, but over time you develop your own style. It grows organically, like everything else in life. Signed, John. And that comes with the paint set. I think it's absolutely beautiful. I messaged my cousin about it, who's another artist and huge early Warhammer fan, and he said, that's so weird. He said, I had a dream about John Blanche the other night and I was explaining to my son who he was, and you were there as well. So he's just part of that gaming psyche and subconscious. We grew up with his art in the books, in the gaming books, in the roleplay books, fighting fantasy. There's so many of these great artists passing now, like the guy who invented Space Hulk, is it Richard Halliwell, and Martin McKenna, and even the guy that illustrated Warlock of Firetop Mountain, did he pass as well some years back? I think he did. And now there's a fly in my room. In true end of Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho style, there's a fly at the end of the video. But yeah, John Blanche, rest in peace. I actually went out yesterday and joined a new gaming group, tabletop gaming group. I'm thinking, enough of this painting at home. It's beautiful just painting at home, but I need to get back out onto the table, because as a good friend said to me quite recently, we don't get much time in life to do what we want, so we've got to get on with it and make the most of it. But yeah, John Blanche, rest in peace. I hope you've appreciated this tribute video, and just know that your legacy will live on, and I think probably will live on for many, many hundreds of years in the realms of fantasy illustration and science fiction and gaming. And I just can't wait to attend the first John Blanche exhibition, whenever that's going to be, and whoever's going to organise that. Okay guys, it's been a bit of a heavy one, but take care, and yeah, just keep happy and keep painting. That's all you know.